Welcome to everybody. It's a pleasure to see you all. We have quite a lovely program for you today. Basically, we will do a 2025 year review of the Service Design Network Chapter Switzerland community, and we'll do four things. We'll go over a few of the insights that we covered in this year through several webinars. Then we'll get into a moment where you can share your own service design insights. We will then give you a little bit of an outlook and what happens in 2026 for this tiny little community. And then on the last bit, for those who wish and can, we'd be happy to hear a little bit what are your wishes for 2026. But the question is always, why are we all together here today? So let me give you just a few pointers about what this is. We are here together for, this sounds very pastoral. We are here together. It's one of those moments where you say, we are here together to marry Brian and Mario. But no, today we are here to marry two aspects of the vision that the Service Design Network Switzerland chapter has. One bit, which is to put service design on the map of Switzerland, and the second bit, which is to put Switzerland on the map of service design. And these webinars are an occasion to do both of these things, obviously, but we do quite a few more things, and you will see that also in the outlook for next year. And that's why we are here. The Service Design Network Switzerland is organized by volunteers. So this is all stuff done by people who love this way too much to be paid, and they have way too much fun doing it. So let me come to the nitty-gritty, the inspiring stuff from this year. So we selected, I think, around 36 service design insights that we collected from the webinars that happened during the year. So if you missed some, this is really the moment because we put them all in one. We had to make a bit of a selection because I think from my count, we did 17 webinars this year, plus a full day of conference and stuff done on site. So there is way too much, but we made a kind of a selection, but still we love even the people that we didn't showcase here. We just didn't showcase all because of the sake of time for today. But let's get started. And we'll go from what happened just right now to then go really back in time up until January. A month ago, we had Arun Joseph Martin, who came to speak around his learnings from prototyping a journey management study group. And if we pick three learnings or three insights from that session, the first one is really this tension that when you build a study group with other service design professionals or nerds, there is a challenge that you need to solve, which is, are you playing as the organizer or are you playing as the learner? Usually, if you don't say that well in advance, there is a risk that just because of the fact that you are inviting people, that suddenly there is an expectation that you are in this organizer role. And so this is a thing that Aaron really discovered through his own experimentation and the value of making very sure that this expectation from his side and the side of the people who joined this study group are crystal clear. Which brings us to his second insight, which is the value of being very explicit of what do people get from this study group, but what do people have to bring also. So it's both value proposition and value giving, so going in both ways. And I think this is also something that was quite inspiring, where making this clear from the start creates a very strong relationship. Another point, which was extremely interesting, was he had a whole take around just the cultural dynamics, where depending on the cultures, there might be an expectation that, oh, study group is linked to a specific way of studying. So study group might be, we're going to read together. In another culture, it might be, we're going to spend time having presentations together. Another group might just have, it's going to be a chit chat. And this is cultures also just of learning from one university to the other, depends on where you studied, but also from countries and other types of cultures. The kind of expectation setting and understanding that there are very different cultures is there, again, something very important. Knowing also that there are specific cultures where people don't feel at much at ease being in front of an audience, even if it's on an audience of 4 or 5 or 6 people. And so knowing how to manage that is definitely something important, and making clear at the start what will be a challenge for each culture and from which culture people come from. And especially asking the question, because there is one beauty, which is sometimes we imagine. I have that with Swiss police sometimes. When they stop me in the street, they ask me from which southern country I'm coming from. And then I have to say I'm a Swiss German because I have an Italian name and I look like that. And so sometimes just asking, like, what is the culture that you better fit in, and what's your culture of learning, is something that can be very important. So that was a session with Arun, and the call to action that I find, which was very inspiring from him, was this call to action to say, if there is an emergent topic that you feel is coming, and you find no books, you find no course, nothing, just grab a group of curious people with you and study together in any way that fits you better. Can be through presentations, can be through trying things out, can be by doing a bit of research. But if there is an emerging topic, get a group of people with you. It makes learning a little bit more fun. Moving on with the event with Katrin Kolo. So Katrin Kolo she is someone who's a consultant, but also a professional wing foil thing, the thing that does like that on the sea. And she is also a choreographer, so who did that in for operas and things like that. And she has this whole bit around choreographic thinking for service design. So using as a way to ideate, to think about stuff. And one of the most important points that she shared with us is really this idea of the body thinks beyond the brain and is faster than the brain. There are things that we can't express with words, that we can't express with drawings, but that we can express with movement, with our body. And so therefore, she pushed us to reflect on how can we use the body as both an element of ideation, an element of analysis. How do I feel in this situation? How do we feel as a group? And so that was something that I feel was very important. And it goes a little bit beyond, I think, the notions of body storming and things like that, because there is really a notion of really like this choreographic movement, like group movement, this and movement which is much more free. And yet, that brings us to the second point. One of the exercises that she often gives is as a start, she puts some constraints in just to help people get in, which means that, for example, one of the exercises that she shares is to tell people there is two rules, which is if you go in this direction in the room, you have to walk, and if you go in that direction in the room, you have to run. So fast, slow, and fast. And that's just two very tiny things, but then suddenly the group starts to do something, and there starts to be something that happens. Quite interesting bit. I would highly recommend that you watch it back. She's much more creative in her description. She has very good examples that she shared. But one piece that I would keep for me personally as a reminder was this thought that she said, in a world of AI which can mimic language, which can mimic our capacity to draw and our capacity of synthesizing data, at least for now, one of the things that robots can't do that well is use a body to feel, express, think. So that was a thing that I found quite interesting in her framing of looking, maybe the body is, at least for the next few years, one of the differentiator outside of our capacity for language, which often in history we say like the difference between animals and us and machines is our capacity for language, but that has a little bit changed over the last few years. Now moving to Iran, we had Leili. Leili is someone of the community who has been extremely present throughout the year, and she has brought us in a topic of using service design for everyday life, not making this difference between the tools that I use at work, I use them at work, and they don't are used in my personal life. And so she showed us a few of her techniques of how she uses service design skills for personal life situations. One of the things that she did was as a service design practitioner, she uses a sort of self-interview process. You could call that journaling, but formulated as if she was interviewing herself, which means writing the question, putting down the answer, but then not just leaving it there like a journal, but then doing the analysis like a researcher, coding the interview, going back through it, analyzing the links, what is said over a few months. So that was quite an interesting bit of seeing how you can use that skill to then bring it back in your own life. Could be seen as a bit of a self-therapy exercise, but here framed as I'm good in interviews. I do that all day. Why not interview myself? Another aspect that she uses is these big whiteboards, where often in big complex projects, we have these whiteboards where we try to see an overview, maybe have a Kanban of what is happening. We try to have this big thing outside of our brain and usually having a mix of sketches of words and elements on it. And she saw that for her managing kind of personal projects like that, which is really something that helped her out quite a lot. And just to pick another one, it's this notion of sketching the situations. So she told us about a few life challenges that she had. She lives in a country that has seen war, that has seen quite challenging situations. And she told us about this power of just sketching out what is the problem of the moment and making it visible. And then to be able to say, okay, now this is the part that is in my power to change, and I'm going to focus on that. And maybe that part is not in my power, and that's okay. But by drawing it and seeing the system, there is like a relief of I at least can make sense of it. It is not anymore this doubting thing. Moving back to Switzerland, we had Valentina Röschli, who explored the mix between branding and service design. She's working as a brand and service design consultant in an agency, and she shared with us quite a few elements. And one of those, which I found quite inspiring, is this question or this thought that the true brand identity is not the one that is experienced through great brand kit colors, logos, and things like that. But it's really lived through the experience that the customer, the patient, and so on has. So that was quite an interesting reflection to say this service design customer experience is definitely also part of the brand experience. Yet, she had this notion of the delivery gap, which is this classical thing from Bain and Company that you can Google out, which is I might get the numbers wrong from memory, but basically it said that 80% of companies believe that they are offering a superior experience. But then when you would ask the people who use these services, only 20% would agree, which shows that there is really a gap between what we believe we're offering and what people really feel and experience. And that's a very important reminder, I think, for both brand people and also service people to know that, yes, these things are important, and yet we still struggle quite a lot. And one of the solutions that she shared is this importance of, even in a world where brand people might maybe be in the marketing team and experienced people might be in another team, to still create these moments of sharing the knowledge, moments of sharing the language also, so that these people can slowly but surely talk to each other. And that's a small, quick win. It's very simple to do. Doesn't need to change the whole company around, and yet that has still beautiful results in being able to really have a good understanding as people to create something that fits the brand, and as brand people to know what are the real pain points, and so that the brand promises are expressed in a way that fits the real lives of people. Back with Arun, so Canada this time. Arun came twice this year. He felt very generous and we were very happy for his generosity. This is Arun is running this community of service design, the Service Design Books Club, and he shared with us a few recommendations, answered a few questions. But basically, if we will summarize his kind of recommendation for beginners, he would recommend that people read This is Service Design Thinking and Designing the Invisible as two books to start with. For people who are more advanced in their career, he really recommends the Experimentation Field book and the book Experimentation Works. For people who want something a bit outside of service design, the book What's Your Problem? And the other one, which is The VP of No, quite a beautiful title. And when we asked him for what is the underrated book that he would really recommend, is Generations at Work, which offers this kind of guide for people of different generations to understand what are the expectations of a younger generation, of a more senior generation, about how collaboration happens, expectation about how trust is shown, how appreciation is shown, because these things obviously are very different from culture to culture, but also from generation to generation. Lilli Graf then shared with us, and that was during the Service Design Week, which is a full week where each day we have a tiny lightning talk, 30 minutes, 3 insights, and 3 questions from the community. And her session was about designing from scratch and service design. And she shared a bit more about the business side and how you can use service design to start your own business and also be of help for the business decision makers. One of the elements that I really appreciated is her parallel view of saying, we have to speak with decision makers and we want to do our research before making decisions. And yet, decision makers have some ideas already. And sometimes they are based on 20 years, 30 years of knowledge, which are expressed in an order, if we can say it like that. And so her recommendation is to not just say, wait, we need to do the research first, but rather do these in parallel and say, yeah, beautiful idea, let's test it out. And in parallel, do the deep research, which is a sign of respect for the years of experience that people bring. And yet, there is this kind of very professional ethic of saying we still need to do some serious deep research just to validate things. And if we validate things from the testing perspective and from the research perspective, hey, that's beautiful. We're then all. One differentiator that she makes about kind of customer problems, which I find also very inspiring, especially in the way that she frames it, is to make a difference between painkiller problems and vitamin problems. Painkiller problems are problems where I feel the pain and I know I need to get my aspirin. Vitamin problems are problems where I imagine it will do good if I take this vitamin, and in the long term, it might really help me live a few years more, but I can skip it now. I will not die tomorrow out of it. And I think it was very interesting for me to see how she said it's very important, especially in business settings, to be able to see which are these painkiller problems in order to create some momentum. And to pick those ones doesn't mean that we don't work on the vitamins, but to create like a story around the painkiller problems to create the momentum so that we then also have the opportunity to work on some more vitamin problems. And in short, the whole aspect that she shared, I think, is also this aspect of saying business and service design are sometimes people on the same worlds, but on opposite poles. And it is important that we recognize that there is a gap of language, there is a gap of metaphors, there is a gap of methods. Sometimes the best way is just to learn the language of the other, to speak in the language of the other. And that's definitely an important thing if we want to be of better service for those who make decisions. We had also the pleasure to have from Germany, who is the president of the Service Design Network, and she gave a talk around community and service design. 3 of her lessons were this building for the common. So really looking for how can we just build something that is a shared space, that is shared knowledge that belongs to everybody, which then brought her to say it's not just about being of service, but it's also about if we design a community to then let the community take charge, take ownership of what we create. And an interesting take was this kind of opposite view where sometimes as communities we want to bring people within the community instead of that the community goes where the people are. This is not the story that she shared, but that I'd like to share, which I think represents that quite well, is the classical problem of church, of modern church today. A lot of modern churches have made the decision to go outside of their buildings and to be present with the people instead of saying, come in this big building which is cold and that looks very strange. So instead of making people come to you, go to the people. Julia, back to Switzerland, spoke to us about this importance of, or maybe this paradox of how service design professionals are extremely strong in understanding user needs, the needs of external stakeholders, but sometimes struggle to understand the needs of people who are internal. There is a bit of a separation. We're very good at understanding people who are outside the organization, but sometimes struggle with the people within the organization. And her recommendation was really to say, look at people within with the same tools you already master. A little bit like Leili told us in the everyday service design thing to say, you already have the tools, the ways, just use them in another context. Then she really shared this aspect that for stakeholders, business people within large organizations, there is really this language gap where design language, sometimes strategic language, is not fully understood. And there, the opportunity to simplify through storytelling, strong one-pager documents is something that really helps. Instead of these beautiful service blueprints that we love making, but that then many don't understand and feel like hieroglyphs. She proposes instead to say, let's summarize, let's synthesize, let's give the most important bits. And let's be clear that not everybody needs to have all the tiny details. And finally, she really pushed us, and that was a bit her call to action, to not just have prototypes, artifacts that create a sense of information that people understand what is happening, but also that we create prototypes that bring people together and in one vision where they say, we really want this. And everybody can say, that's the thing that we would like to see in the future. And that can help also internally to convince more people. We then had Camila, who is an alumni of the HSLU, Master Service Design, who is working as a service design professional. And she shared a little bit what it means to study service design and to also transition from studying to becoming a professional. And one of the tips that she shared, which was very strong, is this aspect of when you start your studies, having somewhere written your personal why of why have I decided to come here? Why am I choosing this topic to explore? Is something extremely important as throughout a master program, you are challenged quite a lot. You are challenged by your peers who do other stuff. You're challenged by your mentors, the teachers who say, have you really, is this really the topic that you want to do? And so still taking the feedback, but not forgetting the deep reason why you're coming here. And to bring that why back, because in the middle of the work, we might forget where did we want to go? Obviously, the way can change, but where we wanted to go is an important reminder. And I think that's also something that is extremely important also for professionals, reminding ourselves, why did I choose to work in this company? What was my initial motivation? And that brings us also to this realization that there is a honeymoon phase. in studying, but also in working. And that's perfectly okay. But we also should recognize that it will end, and that's also okay. And that then reality comes in, and then we see the parts that don't work, the parts that we maybe don't like. And that's also when this personal why comes back, which then lets us realize for this why, I'm still okay to live with these issues. That's okay. It's a good price. It's an okay price to pay. And finally, her final aspect was to really seek for the friendship, the community, the people, and choosing the people and staying with the people that can challenge you, that can comfort you, and that can support you. And to be really clear on when to go to which people and to build that community around you. Back to Germany, we had Isabell Fringer, who spoke to us about how to not sell service design. One of the aspects that she shared was really this switch of not speaking about service design at all. This doesn't matter. That's our tiny in backstage cooking mechanism. If you use a spoon of 25 millimeters versus 18 millimeters is not really what matters. What matters is, will the cake be tasty? That's really what matters. And so she really proposed to us to forget the language, forget the persuasion, the evangelization, but rather really focus on what is the problems that we can solve for the people we serve, and let's speak about that. And she's very clear also about the kind of ambivalence there is when doing service design work in organizations, because service design work is often quite transformative, and yet we're working in an organization that needs to see change happen fast. And there is an ambivalence, and yet she told us this importance of being able to play with the quick wins to create the one aspect that Isabell saw a lot of potential for is this idea of journey management and all the practices that come with it as a bit of a translator or kind of a Rosetta Stone for service design and business, where journey management as a practice has a lot of the language and understanding that business people can have, and therefore she sees a lot of potential there, and also potential for growth for the service design professionals to scale a little bit more their impact through the whole organization. Last but not least, I'm very happy that we have Mario in today also as a representative, and we have it now also here on the slide. So we had Mario Saba back to Switzerland. We had to finish with someone from Switzerland, obviously, especially with a topic that is very dear to us in Switzerland, which is a country of hospitality, political hospitality, also with the Alps, where we have these hospices. Mario can tell you a lot about that. But he had this topic around touching the substance of hospitality through something that can sound like a little bit provoking. Information systems. How do these things fit together? He had this interesting take around that hospitality is about removing the mediocrity from every experience. So, in a world of AI slop in general, and shifty, and it's quite a beautiful way to see hospitality as maybe a cure for against the mediocrity. One element that especially inspired me is how Mario really bridges together multiple fields. He has kind of like this triangle between the experience side, the information side, and then the hospitality side. And he brings that all together. And to be, I feel there is really some big potential for learning for service design professionals to explore what can information systems teach us about the services that we are redesigning, the processes that we are optimizing. And then he had this beautiful story about where hospitality started with this notion that it didn't start in hotels, but in hospitals. And this notion, in the end, what hospitality maybe is really the fact of treating people with dignity at every moment, but also at their most vulnerable moment. The hospital is usually the moment where you're the most vulnerable. You're in pain, you're in a place where you're between life and death. There is a lot of clarity, and yet you're treated by the nurses in a way that you feel gives you back dignity in that moment where you're lost. And I find quite also inspiring another quote that he had, which was even, I think, if I remember well, and he can then correct me, but that even in war, we should need hospitality. Even war needs this showing of dignity, which was quite an inspiring element, especially knowing the year that we've been through with quite a few wars. But so to end up on a high note, it's really this importance of the hospitality and going back also to the origins of this hospitality and the history of hospitality, which is very rich. And I feel it's for me always inspiring to see that there is a rich history for our field before even our field was born. There is a history. It's like with kids, they come to the world, yet they have grandparents, they have generations behind them that they didn't know about. And I feel hospitality is like one of those grandparents which maybe we don't know about in the world of service design, which we could go and look for what it can teach us again. So these are 36 insights from 2025, which is quite a lot. And obviously, there is way more. And I'd like also to be very clear that all of this knowledge is available on the website. There is way much more. You can go back to the videos. And to me, I hope that this gave you maybe a taste for one or the other webinar that you say, I really want to watch that one that I maybe missed, or rewatch it because it gave me this taste of the one about everyday service design from Leili. Really want to watch it. The one about hospitality from Mario. Really want to watch it again. What's coming in 2026? So in 2026, we have quite a big plan. We'll continue to have, as the Service Design Network Switzerland chapter, still one webinar a month as our promise. It's a bit this pulse that we create in the community. We will have, before the 1st of June, a full week where we do a world tour of service design. We're going to go, we'll have 7 days where each day we go in another country remotely with a guest from a service design community from somewhere else. We'll have Canada, we'll have Iran, we'll have touching wood, Singapore. We have quite a few beautiful places, Mexico, the United States, and so on, who will be represented. And we're very eager, especially we have this plan that each country teaches us about one thing that they do in a different way, or one cultural aspect that is different and that changes their perspective of what service design is and how it's practiced, which I'm very curious about. Then on the 1st of June, we have our classical Swiss Service Design Day. For those who can come to Switzerland, please come then. The weather is beautiful, the people are lovely, and we'll have a day which is a bit of a family reunion style gathering. We limit it to a certain number of people. This is not your 200 people, 2000 people kind of conference. This is more a family gathering. We want to be able to know each other all by first name, and it's quite a beautiful moment. And then in the backstage, something that maybe will be less visible, we setting kind of the administrative side of the association. For now a few years, we've been in grassroots mode, just pushing that this community has again a pulse, and we were very happy that this really happened in the last years. And now we need to kind of reset up the whole association bit, kind of the official and formal things. And with that, we will then open also an election process so that maybe there will be a new leadership if people wish for that. On the family gathering aspects, there is, I will share that then in the chat and in the description of the recording, but there is already the full day of the Swiss Service Design Day conference, June 1st, is already programmed with all the guests, talks, workshops, which is, I think, a testament to how Switzerland works, time precise, 6 months in advance. So we really appreciate that all of these smart people will come and will speak. We'll have a lot of stuff around inclusive services, everyday service design. Now I come to the question, what is it that you had as a highlight of learning or experience in your service design journey in 2025? If there's something that you wish to share, I think that would be beautiful. I will allow myself to maybe ask to Leili because I know she usually is okay to be on camera. So I allow myself to ask you, maybe you, Leili, what is your insight of this year if you had to pick one, but you can also share more if you wish.
Hi, Daniel, and to everyone. Actually, in 2025, I participated to all events of ST in Switzerland, except the one that belonged to Mario Saba. That was so unfortunately because I was driving I was on the road and I had a poor connection and I missed it. And I should say that 2 days ago, I had a speech in the University of Tehran about service design. I was invited there, and I must confess that I was completely armed with a wide perspective about service design that I received from these webinars that I participated during 2025 from services, actually SDN Switzerland. And like the question and answer part in that, like a speech from students was like playing in the playground for me because I had this experience of having question answer from many different perspectives that you mentioned even now. And it really expanded my perspective about service design. And I have many topics now to talk about because the reason that I participated to these events was at the end of the like 2024, I felt so alone about being surrounded by service designers, and now I am so rich, and I'm thankful that you made this opportunity for me actually to become the one that I am now, and I'm really happy about it.
Wow, thank you so much. That's a beautiful testimonial. To me, there is a beauty that I would like to acknowledge here, which is this beauty of abundance is sometimes a click away. The abundance of relationships, of diversity, of different thoughts. This abundance is sometimes just one click away, which is register. Well, it's a few clicks more. It's register, put the email, say yes, and then click on the Zoom button. So it's 3 clicks away. But that's quite a beautiful thing to see that when we are in these situations of there is not enough, we can, with a little bit of effort, we can really get there. That's a beautiful insight for 2026. Thank you so much, Leili. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Maybe Mario, as you are a past speaker and I spoke a lot about you, maybe you have also something that you wanted to share with the community.
Thank you so much. Yes, I would be having something to share with you. Your network is a place of transversality for me. Like it is where, and that's why I'm here today because I like conclusions. It was the moment to be here because you have spread all the things that you have done during the years, and I can see how much it is rich. And already, if I look at you guys here on the screens, everyone has different background, experience, perspectives. And this is the thing that I seek in Swiss Service Design Network. Like to be more concrete, after I spoken with you in February last year, I think. And then after that, I had the idea from that openness that I've taken, like from your way of doing things. I said to myself, okay, let's go back and do something related to past experience I have had. And now that we have someone from Seattle, maybe it will make sense for him also. I used to be, I was in 2019 in Seattle, and then because I'm faculty at Washington State University, and then I went to Seattle to visit, and then I saw that there is a Pike Place, the public market, the fish public market, and I was astonished by the experience you get there when you go to the fish market, because there's no other fish market in the world like this fish market, where normally what people go and do in the fish market, they go and maybe they will buy fish and then they go cook them, and then, but there, no, you go and you see a show. And I have seen a show, people playing, those fishermen, they were processing fish, displaying fish. They are real authentic fishermen, but they know how to sell fish more than anybody. And then at that moment, 2019, I didn't know that there is something we call fish philosophy, and that there has been one book published since back into 2000, year 2000, on the fish philosophy. And then, so I was late on the fish philosophy. However, like the exposure with you guys and this network, Swiss Design, made me wanting to try something, which is taking the fish philosophy and applying it on something else, and more precisely on hotels, hotel management. I will not say the name of the hotel chain that I spoken for. And then, yeah, I found a way, thanks to you guys, to get back to a past experience I had back to 2019, and then convert the fish philosophy into something we can use to solve problems in a chain of a hotel in Europe. So to make it very quick, in the fish philosophy, there is a notion of play. Yeah, we can play on the workplace. Okay, we know how to play with the fish. And then they were throwing fishes from big fish, like from 10 meters, one to others. And you know, the fish is slippy. You'll know, it's so difficult to throw and get the fish. And then play on the workplace. There is a way, yes, we can play. And that is touching hospitality in somewhere. Be there. There is another notion that says you should be there for your client, and be there as those fishermen were for their clients selling fish. Be there when you are medical doctor listening to your patient. Be there when you are a receptionist in a hotel or in any public administration. Be there where you are a garagist and you fix cars for others. So there are a lot of conversion models that we can take from that. And then what I retain also, like play, be there, and then make their day. Make the day for your client or anyone you meet with. There's a way you can make his or her day. And then I was like pleased to convert that into specific market, into specific need, into specific business field. And that was European hotel chain. And yeah, so all that is all about openness. This is hospitality. One of the roots of is being open. And you guys bring to the people the motivation to be open day after day. So thank you. And then this is how you help me to bring new methods on the menu and new business. And I'm so happy.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mario. Fish philosophy, the openness of seeing all of these different ways of working, the heritage, going back to what we have experienced and bringing it back to today, yeah? Recontextualizing it. And these are very powerful elements. Thank you so much for sharing these inspirations. It's a joy for me. I have this secret plan. I have a lot of secret plans. One of the secret plans I have is, for me, the one thing that is important is that in communities like service design community is to propose not it has to be like that, but rather to open the minds and open the world of possibilities where people realize, wow, I could dance and do something, which to me feels very weird. But for someone else, I could translate that in business language, and I don't even have to speak about my trade. And to be in this world where we can learn from someone who is a dancer, we can learn from someone who is doing hospitality, we can learn from someone who is another service design practitioner, we can learn from someone who is in business. And these things, for me, are something which is quite important, that we come out a little bit of our silos of thinking just business, thinking just experiential, thinking just artistic, but that we try to at least hear the other perspectives, maybe try to dabble a little bit in them also. And so what I hear from both you, Mario and Leili, that it gave you this taste to play with other philosophies, fish philosophy, but also to see that there is an openness, and that then we are not anymore in this, when I have to teach, as Leili says, I don't have to teach in it is like this, but rather here are the options. This is maybe one that I appreciate a lot, but here are other options. And I think that's a beautiful place of abundance. Beautiful. Hey, I really appreciate all of this so much. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all to you who are rewatching this in between some Christmas parties with a stomach that is hurting, but I hope at least that your ears are very happy and open. I thank you so much to all of the guests that came this year. There are way too many people to mention, so I will not do the mistake of forgetting someone, but I'd like to really thank you all the people also in the backstage that are making these events possible. There is quite a lot of organization. Thank you a lot to all the speaker workshop facilitators that came in this year. Each time it's quite a lot of preparation for them, and they have to work with someone who sometimes asks them 1 year in advance to do something and to block their calendar 1 year in advance, which is also sometimes a bit of a challenge. So a big thank you to all of them. A thank you also to all our elders, if we can say it like that, the people who started these organizations. Very much thankful to all of them, and especially thankful for all the people who joined, asked a good question, asked a provocative question, added an insightful look, an addition that made everything smarter, and that just by your presence give meaning to these moments. Because if there is nobody to serve, is there a service? And thank you so much for helping us to be of service. And thank you so much for being of service also with the community in general, as I've seen many beautiful stories of people that then connect after such sessions and then continue collaborations. So a big thank you to all of you. Thank you for a beautiful year 2025 from the side of the Service Design Network Switzerland. A big thank you for all what you did, for all what you did for the community. And from my personal side, I wish you all a beautiful end of year in whatever type of celebration that you do in your country, culture, and way of living. Thank you to all for joining. It's been a pleasure. And for those who want to stay, you can stay a little bit longer. Let me remove the recording.